Well, let's start the show with this good news. And are we all popping the champagne tonight, having a drink to celebrate? Because it looks like Adam Bandt is out of politics. The leader of the most vile anti-Israel party who made Jewish Australians feel like they didn't have a place in this country. And now, if Sky News chief election analyst Tom Connell is right, Adam Bandt has lost his job. Here was Tom making that decision desk call this afternoon.
What would he need in the remaining absent votes to be able to win? 63%. That is just far too high an outperformance from everything else that has happened in this election. So we're assuming lots of positives for Bandt from here, and he still would need 63%. So given that, I know there's plenty of vote left, we are now saying the Labor Party will pick up the seat of Melbourne, and Adam Bandt, the Greens leader, will lose the seat of Melbourne.
And to that I say bye-bye Bandt. Goodbye to your divisive brand of politics. To the fact that while your fellow Australians, Jews, were being harassed, targeted, doxed and threatened, while our community had our property vandalised and firebombed, while we were living in daily fear, you continued to antagonise us. You supported a boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel. You wrongly claimed there was a genocide in Gaza when the only people who had a clear plan for genocide was Hamas, who wanted to wipe out every Jew on this earth. A mission that Hamas began when it massacred Israelis on October 7. Instead of campaigning for the release of the hostages, you campaigned for an end to the Jewish state. And here were some of your despicable comments.
Calling for an end to the invasion of Gaza, putting sanctions on this extreme war cabinet of Benjamin Netanyahu that is subject to orders to stop genocide, ending the military trade with Israel and expelling the Israeli ambassador. We want to see an end to the invasion of Gaza and an end to the occupation. Children are now dying because they can't get enough to eat or drink as part of a human-engineered famine, human-engineered by the Israeli military. There will not be a just and lasting peace in the region until the occupation of Palestine ends.
And now he's been voted out. And so for this reason tonight, we do have a reason to smile. Australians have rejected the antagonism by the Greens leader of our community, because that is what the Greens party came to stand for. It was a pro-Palestinian party, not an environmental one. Now, news of Bandt's departure was celebrated by Pauline Hanson this afternoon.
Just quietly between you and I was getting ready to come onto your program when I heard the news. And I couldn't help it. I did a dance around the house in my bra and knickers, and I had to have a gin and tonic. So I am so excited. That's the best news I've heard.
I'm sure she wasn't the only one dancing around in her undies celebrating when the news came through. Well, the nightly front page summed it up well by saying, from the Yarra to the Seer. And Richo also put it well on this program last night when he said there would be many a dry eye to see Bandt leave Parliament. And I'll tell you what, the driest of all is right here. So let's toast to this one piece of good news. And let's say good riddance to bad rubbish. Now, in other good news, Teal Zoe Daniel is officially out of the Parliament, with Liberal Tim Wilson today reclaiming the seat of Goldstein.
I'm very proud.
Deep breath, deep breath.
Yep. Genuinely very proud to say that we are pleased to accept that we have won the seat of Goldstein back for the Liberal Party.
Well, quite strangely, Zoe Daniel put out a post refusing to concede. She said, while the media has called the result in Goldstein, I will wait for further counting out of respect for my scrutineers and the democratic process. Although she didn't have a problem waiting on Saturday night when she began her victory celebration. And now she can dance off into the sunset. You can't see enough of that clip. And now Tim Wilson isn't ruling out a tilt at the leadership. Other leading contenders emerging as Susan Ley and Angus Taylor. Fellow moderate Jason Falinski has backed Tim Wilson in as a leadership contender as members argue over whether the Liberal Party should be more conservative or centrist.
He is the first and only person in Australian political history to win a seat back from an independent, at the next election. What he has managed to do is incredibly significant. He represents the people whose votes we need to get back.
Should he and will he run for leader?
Well, I don't want to spoil it. I hope he does, but I'll be tuning in at 11 to find out.
I know you said you don't want to comment on the Liberal leadership. Do you have any aspirations for it?
Well, today I had aspirations for one thing, and it was to have the great privilege and service to be the member for Goldstein again. And, of course, we have lived out that promise.
And of course, what Jason Falinski said wasn't quite true there, because Dave Sharma did win the seat of Wentworth from independent Karen Phelps, and then Sharma lost it to Allegra Spender. And Dave Sharma is going to be on the show tonight, by the way. Now, there's also a view that Jacinta Nampijinpa Price needs to find a way to move to the lower house to be in a position to run for the leadership. And Ray Hadley said here last night that she's clearly the most talented with a strong ability to connect with voters.
I think the next Liberal National Party Prime Minister is not in the lower house at the moment. They're not in the lower house, but they are certainly in the Senate. But they've got to make their way to the lower house to be elevated to that position.
You're telling Jacinta Price this?
Well, she knows I love her. I really think she's a great Australian, and I really think that we need someone to stand up and take us forward, and she'd be the person, if she could get to the lower house, that could do it.
One thing's for sure, it's going to be a long period in the wilderness for the Liberal Party. But Teal Zoe Daniel wasn't the only Teal who celebrated prematurely. Monique Ryan and Nicolette Buell's seats are also now in doubt, with counting ongoing. And in total, there's still around a dozen or so seats that the Australian Electoral Commission say are too close to call. Now, in Bradfield, Liberal Giselle Kapterian is ahead of Nicolette Buell by about 215 votes. In Kooyong, Amelia Hamer is just 723 votes behind Monique Ryan. And Hamer is sitting on 44% of the primary vote. I think this is extraordinary. While Ryan has only about 34% of the primary vote, but then, of course, she's receiving preferences from Labor, Greens and the other parties. Now, in the new WA seat of Bullwinkle, Labor's Trish Cook is 90 votes ahead of Liberal candidate Matt Moran. Other undecided seats include Bendigo, Bean in the ACT and Fremantle. The seat of Ryan is also too close to call. So depending on how the rest of the counting goes, you could be looking at a situation where the Greens are wiped out with no lower house seats at all. Now, their Senate representation is just as strong as it was before, and they could hold the balance of power in the Senate. The reality is Labor will need to rely on either the Greens or the coalition to get legislation passed. Now, in seats like Kooyong and Goldstein, there's no question the Jewish vote would have bolstered the chances of the Liberal candidate. So the counting continues, it's taking its time, but there's certainly strong hope that Greens leader Adam Bandt will be gone from our political scene. And if so, it will be down to his hostile position towards Israel and the Jewish community. And that should be a lesson for Labor, that a political party has basically been annihilated in the lower house, has been severely punished by voters for blatant anti-Semitism.